owned bank in the country based on my understanding. They terminated a contract they had with the NRA to issue their credit cards. They terminated it. Other smaller entities have done so. PayPal is one of them.
Time, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Chambers. Senator Stinner would like to welcome the following guests. We have approximately 20 high school students from Scottsbluff High School sitting in the north balcony. Would you please stand and be recognized by the Nebraska Legislature? Thank you so much for coming down. Senator Friesen would also like to welcome the National Utility Contract Association of Nebraska. They're having their legislative day. There's approximately 20 of them in the north balcony as well. Would you please stand and be recognized by the Nebraska Legislature? Thanks so much for coming down. Returning to debate, Senator Chambers, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. There was a young man named Timothy McVeigh, and he was executed May 16th, 2001. Before he was executed by the federal government, I wrote a column for the Omaha Star, a newspaper for which I had written over 100 articles. We had a parting of the ways after several hundred articles due to what you might call artistic, editorial, or content differences. This article appeared in the Omaha Star April 26, 2001, which would have been 3 weeks before the scheduled execution of Timothy McVeigh. The heading is "The Triumphant Laughing Ghost of Timothy McVeigh." It seems that something in the psyche of people who do spectacular, shocking, or horrendous things impels them to explain their deed or conduct. They seem to have a profound need to be understood. That is to say, they want people to grasp why they did whatever they did and to see the underlying reasons for it. They need to lay out in detail the justification. Their aim seems to be to win over to their side as many minds as possible. Yet, as contradictory as it may be, they simultaneously manifest a type of ego-shielding bravado which proclaims, "I really don't care what anybody thinks or how they feel." But really, it seems they do. Given the opportunity and having the ability, they very painstakingly and meticulously break down the matter into tiny segments which are carefully analyzed and explained. Either they write the story with their own hand or commit the task to someone they trust to present it, quote, "the way they tell it," unquote, rather than someone who may interpret or prettify the account for self-serving or career-advancing purposes. What about Timothy McVeigh? Since McVeigh knows that he will have very little time left on this earth after publication of his story, he obviously has no interest in financial gain. Fame or acclaim, he'll not be around to bask in or enjoy such. Remembrance and perhaps even veneration, that may be cutting close to the bone. For as the hillbilly song wails, quote, "the sweetest meat is closest to the bone." And to continue, McVeigh will be gone soon, but definitely not forgotten. I think he wanted a foretaste, there's probably no chance of an aftertaste for him, of the nature of the legacy that will survive his high-profile, world-stopping execution at the hands of the government of the USA. He may realize that, like Jesus and Hitler, he will be a far more powerful force in death than in life. He will, of course, be reviled and excoriated as well as admired and worshiped, a demon to some, an avenging martyr to others. Death magnifies all. The government of the USA, in its blundering way, driven by terrific dread and fear of McVeigh, has contrived to elevate a slaughter of innocents into a towering, never-to-be-forgotten icon, an example of heroic resistance
1 minute.
to governmental oppression, to be emulated, not a cowardly sneak murderer who fled the scene of his unspeakable crime in a frantic effort to escape the consequences of his horrific deed. His cool self-possession in spitting in the face of death has moved many to admiration. When Christ was executed and his body entombed, when Hitler's brains were blown out and his body incinerated, both men's life, though moving in opposite directions, took on a life of their own, and the shadow cast by each across history swamped in magnitude the earthly existence of both men. The precedent will hold for McVeigh, and I'll continue when I'm recognized.
Senator, seeing no one else in the queue, this is your closing.
Thank you, Mr. President. Continuing, when the government of the USA, pursuing its own kill policy, pumps poison into the body of McVeigh on May 16, 2001, his biological life will be extinguished. However, the only thing left strapped to the macabre gurney will be a corpse. What will be resurrected from that grisly death chamber will be a presence, a force, which will stride through the land in 7-league boots. Worldwide, May 16th will belong to Timothy McVeigh. McVeigh's Ode. That was a takeoff on Nero, who chanted an ode from a tower while Rome burned. Timothy McVeigh chanted his ode many months after he torched the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City on April 19, 1995. As a man who seems to relish military symbolism, McVeigh may have chosen the month of April for his attack because April is the month throughout history when armies sallied forth to commence and/or terminate military campaigns. Check it out. His ode was chanted in the recently released book, American Terrorist, Timothy McVeigh and Oklahoma City Bombing. It was co-authored by Lou Michael, maybe Michelle, M-I-C-H-E-L, and Don Herbeck. The word massacre should be substituted for bombing. Predictably, his ode has generated a complex mixture of powerful emotions that can only give McVeigh a sense of accomplishment and a feeling of deep satisfaction, anger, disgust, fury, contempt, hatred, curiosity, bafflement, incomprehension, foreboding. Perhaps the overriding visceral reaction is a type of impotent anger and frustration at his stolid refusal to express remorse or even a shred of regret, or to tender an apology. The man is ice and has spun around himself an impregnable cocoon. Each emotion-charged outburst against him, each additional precaution the government feels compelled to take to try to minimize his significance is merely another needle sunk deep into the hide of his enemies. They hurt him not. They hurt him not at all. They bear him up.